What's up, everybody? This is the Sports League Podcast. I'm your host, Alex Leak, and we got a special guest back on our show for the second time, Daniel Kelly, former Jet Scout, New York Jet Scout. Great to have you back on the show, Daniel.
Hey, Alex, great to be back on the show. So close to the draft. Just have to come up to get a little bit of air. Just released my top 32 value board. I'm excited. I don't know what to do with myself for the next week without any game film I have to watch. It's kind of weird.
Yeah, it's such a long process. I started doing this in like January, and to get to this point, we're about a week away. It's perfect timing having you on too to be able to talk some draft here, and we're both excited as hell. So
Absolutely, for sure. Let's put the ball in the proverbial tee, as they say.
hell yeah. Now let's start it out with so Fernando Mendoza is a big topic right now, and the vast majority of people, including myself, have him going number one overall to the Raiders. You have him. You have what, like a fourth round grade on him, and think he could end up being a bust. Um, to me, I think the Raiders is a good situation for him because of the Clint Kubiak, the success he had with Sam Darnold. I like the paying Tyler Linderbaum, for the center and quarterback, bringing in Kirk Cousins. I think that you can kind of like sit and develop Mendoza a little bit. Tell me what you think of potentially the Raiders taking him at one.
I think it's going to be an absolute disaster, respectfully. And this is cool. This is a cool part, Alex, and to all those who are watching. I mean, this is what an NFL war room really is. Is everybody just kind of puts on the film and says what they think, and there's going to be different opinions in the room. There just is. But, when it comes to, everybody has a chance to talk. But, yeah, no, I mean, the Raiders, to me, I mean, I understand the addition of Tyler Linderbaum. I actually evaluate him coming out of Iowa, had a first-round grade on him, love what he's done with the Ravens. There's a lot to be said for building from the center. I remember with the Jets, one of the first things Bill Parcells did when I was there was bring in Kevin Mawae from the Seattle Seahawks. And so there's a lot to be said for that as far as solidifying that center spot. But to me, when I turn on the film, he is just so incredibly limited from an NFL perspective. He just stands there in the shotgun formation. He's taken, I saw in PFF, he took all but 2 snaps, in shotgun formation this year. He claps for the snap. That's going to be another adjustment for him. Going under center is going to be another adjustment for him. He takes the ball at Indiana. He hands it off to the running back, or basically he looks to throw whatever offered him the most leverage, throws to the outside, deep, back shoulder, deep, outside, 3-4 routes basically repetitively. And the thing that concerns me most, maybe out of all of it about Mendoza, is what happens and what happened, not just what's going to happen, but what happened to him in Indiana when he was in that bubble. But when things broke down, he didn't really know how to respond. And statistically, that's backed up by the fact that he was, PFF had him at 51.2% completion percentage under pressure. And also he had a 53.2% completion percentage per ESPN when he was forced to move off his spot. So to me, the NFL game, he's a very rigid, linear thinker, a systematic thinker. He's a guy, I feel like he can't read a defense post-snap. I think there's going to be a lot of issues there. I feel like his throws were predetermined by the coaching staff. And also, I do not feel that he can feel front or backside pressure. He gets overwhelmed by pressure up the middle. So to me, like, you look at the Raiders, and to me, it's the worst fit in the NFL for Mendoza because the pressure situation, I understand they brought in Linderbaum, but essentially it's the rest of the same thing. Over the last 2 years, they've given up the second most sacks in the NFL at 114 per StatMuse. Last year with 64 sacks per StatMuse on sacks that led the NFL. So to me, and also too, lastly, Mendoza basically has a 3.66 or I'm sorry, 3.65 second time to throw under pressure. And that ranked number 262nd in the country in the FBS. So to me, there's a lot of tells out there, a lot of signs that, you know what, going from the best team playing in a bubble, Indiana, going to potentially the worst team in the league, being the Raiders last year, and also going to a faster and more complex game is going to be a huge jump. And I feel way too big of a jump for Fernando Mendoza.
Yeah, I definitely get those concerns. I never saw Indiana going on that run last year. Like, to me, I'm kind of a casual, but I watch a lot of college football, and the bad teams stay bad typically. And so for
Mm-hmm.
Indiana to go 16-0, win the national championship, for him to win the Heisman, what stood out to me the most was that he played his best when the pressure was at its highest, as far as like in the game, like in the fourth quarter when you had to have it, in the national championship game. Um, do you think guys like Clint Kubiak, do you think they can scheme something to get the ball out quicker, to have the open first reads? Do you think Ashton Genty quick get the ball to Brock Bowers could help him? And then also sitting behind Kirk Cousins, I think that could help him as well. Sit, learn from Kirk Cousins, see how Kirk does it. Do you think any of that could help him?
Potentially, it could help any quarterback. I don't. I
Yeah.
see that the thing about Mendoza is his mindset. Mendoza is a very, like I mentioned, a very linear, very strict, very rigid, very systematic way of seeing life, seeing things. He has to have things. If you watch him in the pocket, he has to have things that if the first and second progression was not there, he visibly starts panicking. He starts
Yeah.
getting jumpy in the pocket. His feet start moving. He drops his eyes. He starts rolling out. He looks for that open receiver. If he can't find something in his line of vision, he throws the ball away or he runs. I mean, this is a guy that ran the ball 90 times this last season. He's a big
Wow.
time runner. This is a big part of his game at 6'5", and he doesn't like to slide or go on a bounce. So I also feel he's going to be a high injury risk in the NFL, or he gets sacked. That's what he does. So to answer your question, I think that teams, now I'm not a coach, but to me it just makes the most logical sense that for coaches, because I feel like last season, I feel like there was times where like Purdue, for example, I posted some stuff on Twitter about what Purdue did. Purdue, his completion percentage dropped about 53.2%, I believe, against Purdue. What did Purdue do? Purdue basically showed one thing pre-snap and backed up and went at something else post-snap. In Miami in the second half, basically, the first half they played kind of off man, kind of, a few yards off the receivers. They just gave them those outside. I mean, even Nick Saban was emphatically saying, "Hey, listen, guys, we got to tighten up that outside coverage in the second half." I mean, Saban was on the halftime show talking about this. And what did Miami do? They battened down the hatches. They tightened up that outside coverage. They brought it down into a press man situation, and they were able to generate pressure, and they were starting to sack him and get to him. They were getting in his head. He was rushing throws. That, to me, is the huge concern. It's not anything to do with Coach Kubiak, who has a long family history of coaching going all the way back to his dad, Gary, who I watched also play quarterback. And of course, he comes from, Mike Shanahan's tree and that whole thing. And I'm sure that Coach Kubiak can scheme very well. That's why he's in the position he's in. But at the end of the day, it comes down to the player. And to me, Mendoza doesn't have the mindset for the NFL. I mean, the NFL is a post-snap game,
Yeah.
quarterback-wise. It's split second flexibility, adaptability, situations that are happening right in front of you. Players, half the defense is going into zone, the other half's breaking the man. The nose tackle's dropping, the safety's coming. I mean, it's got to be fast. You got to pick it up, and I didn't see that at all from him at Indiana. I didn't see his ability to really adjust to things. Matter of fact, when I saw some of those teams do some of those things, Mendoza, he just shut down and didn't play well. So, I had a pre-draft Hall of Fame grade. To answer the rest of your question about Ashton Genty, I had a pre-draft Hall of Fame grade on Brock Bowers. Two great players I had exceptionally high grades on. I don't think that's going to be the issue. I think the issues, and Kirk Cousins obviously has a wealth of experience, and it can help any
Yeah.
quarterback at all, to come in and sit behind a veteran. This whole idea of just throwing these quarterbacks to the wolves just right out of college, there's such a wide, the bridge is getting wider and wider of the differences between college and the NFL. Even the size of the football is different, right? So it's like in college football, they're playing a lot of off man, they're playing a lot of zone. You got NIL, things are simplified even more. You get to the NFL, all of a sudden here comes a playbook the size of, instead of 3 or 4 plays or 10 plays, now you got something the size of a dictionary, and a new language to learn on top of it. And you have to know how to transition into that pretty quickly. So all those things considered, I don't doubt Coach Kubiak or what they've done there, their system or any of that kind of stuff. They obviously just won the Super Bowl in Seattle. It's not that I doubt Fernando Mendoza, because he doesn't show he has a mind that can adapt quickly to things post snap.
Yeah, and we'll see. I mean, he's likely to go one, and so we'll see how it goes for the Raiders. This is a team that has had a lot of struggles, and it would be nice to see the Raiders get back to contention, be going on a deep playoff run and all that. So hopefully Mendoza can do it. I like that they're taking a patient approach. They're trying to build around him, but it's going to be a process, and he's going to have to develop into the NFL game. At the top of my draft, 2-3 is an important, area for where I got Arvell Reese and David Bailey competing for that. And you hear back and forth about the Jets at 2, whether they're going Bailey or Arvell Reese. How do you see that going? I continue to stick with Arvell Reese at number 2. I think teams are chasing after that linebacker edge hybrid like Micah Parsons and Abdul Carter and these guys. Do you see Arvell Reese being that guy, potentially the next Micah Parsons for the Jets?
I don't. I don't. I don't, Alex. I don't. And respectfully, when I turned on, I watched all 30 games of Arvell Reese over the last 2 seasons, and to me, it's like he was really disappointing to me. He's a guy that has really no pass rush tools whatsoever that he showed. And I think this last week he even came out himself on a podcast and talked about how nobody really worked with him on pass rushing tools. I don't know if you saw that or not.
Yeah.
And that to me is kind of weird. Like, so, when we look at a guy as a pass rusher, Abdul Carter is kind of an outlier. Micah Parsons an outlier. Their speed is so extreme that they can just burst into the pocket like they were shot out of a cannon. Arvell Reese doesn't have that kind of speed, I don't believe. I didn't see that on film, and I evaluated both Parsons and I evaluated Carter coming out of Penn State. And also, too, is that Arvell just kind of seems, he just is kind of like an off the ball linebacker. I heard somebody before we went on CBS talking about this. You better have a plan for Arvell Reese, because he's an off the ball linebacker kind of type. I mean, if he's allowed just to freelance and roam, kind of like you're talking about, he can make some plays. But when he gets put into a structured situation, when he gets, he's not that good. I mean, I put a second round grade on because I respect his athletic ability, I respect his strength, I respect his, his physique, his build, everything like that, the way he's put together. But second round grade is where I have Arvell on. Is I just don't. The thing that concerned me the most about Arvell Reese was that he seems to have a low football IQ. There's moments where the play is going one direction and he's running the opposite way. And I'm like, why? I don't know if you saw any of that, but I was just like, what's he doing here? And it feels like a lot of his reactions were a split second slow. Like he was kind of like he wasn't too sure what to do. And then he went like, I think he's a lot more instinctual football player than he is a read and react or read key diagnose type of guy. So to me, it's just like, where does he go fit into the large scheme of things? Because now he's going up to a game in a league where it's a lot faster. It's a lot more complex. The level of competition's a lot higher. Everybody's, really, good around him. And so to me, now he's got to step up even further. And I didn't see that. I mean, when I watch a guy in college and he doesn't show me any pass rush tools whatsoever, that's really concerning to me.
Yeah, and it's hard to project that to the NFL when you don't really see it in college, right? And so
That's why I
Yeah.
have a second round grade. A second round for me is kind of like a, like a benefit of the doubt round. When I give a guy a second round grade, like it could go one of either ways. But I put out a list today of my top 5 busts pre-draft, and he was on there at number 4.
So if you're thinking about a pass rusher that's ready to go right now and is gonna make immediate impact, are you thinking David Bailey? I got him going like Commanders, Dan Quinn.
Yeah, I love David Bailey. There we go.
Yeah.
There we go. We finally agree on one there. I mean, I no, it's not about agreeing. I mean, we can disagree about all these guys, and that's healthy. I mean,
Yeah.
that's what this is supposed to be. Because to me, it's all. I always say it's not about being right; it's about getting them right. About having healthy discussions that are respectful and mutually just like we're doing, like we're talking,
Yeah.
and I think that's great, and kind of see all this because there's so much information to sort through and discern and look through and everything that's why these draft meetings go on for weeks with teams, and they sit around like this, like you and I are doing right now, and they talk about these things. And if you get a room of 12 scouts, you're going to have probably half the room is going to think this and the other half of the room is going to, what I mean, it's going to be just different, and people are going to see different things. That's the beauty of this. It's not a science. But David Bailey, yeah, I mean, he looked like a man amongst boys on
Yeah.
film to me. I mean, he was just a guy that, 13 sacks last year, 73 pressures. I mean, that's 1 year's worth of stats. That's not a career. That's one year. He can finesse and go at the speed, and he can just blow through the back door that way of the pocket and get through that around the edge there in the backside, the perimeter. He has the speed to do that, or he can just man up and just put an offensive tackle in skates, as we say in scouting, and just drive him right back into the quarterback's face. He can do that too, and he's got a switch. He's a mean, nasty, tenacious, violent football player, almost to the point where it's I hate to say this because I love those kind of players, but it's almost to a point where it's a little too much at times, which is why I think teams are thinking about David Bailey. I put together a couple video clips on Twitter, on X. There's a incident last year where David Bailey, I don't know if you saw it, but against when he's playing for Stanford, he actually kicked that guy's head. Did you see that?
No, I didn't see that one.
Yeah, he kicks his head down when he's down, and like really he got ejected from the game.
Wow.
And so the announcer's like, "Ooh, there's no room for that in the game," and they kicked him out. And then this last year, when he's playing, this last season, he went after a photographer.
Okay.
I don't know if you saw that or heard about that.
Yeah.
But he went after photographers. So he doesn't really have, teams that, I mean, I have him as my top ranked, edge rusher in the draft. I have him I valued him at 104, fourth overall on my board. And so the thing that I determined was, well, is this a one-off or is this a pattern? Because one-offs teams tend to overlook. So once something becomes a pattern of behavior, it becomes more concerning. Now, there's been 2 years in a row of something a little over the edge when it comes to violence. So it is a concern. I think teams will probably have a big C on his grade, which stands for character concerns up on the boards. But overall, he's a guy that when you look at him on film, he's just wow. I mean, he's that guy that can just take over games.
How do you see another guy with something came out about character or off the field with Ruben Bain and then Akeem Mesidor over there at Miami? How do you see those guys translating to the NFL? I know Mesidor is older.
Yeah, I wasn't a big fan of Mesidor. I didn't end up writing him up. I looked at him for a while. It just, I don't know. It didn't resonate with me from what I saw of him. Bain is a guy that I really like. Bain is a guy I have valued 10th overall on my board. He takes over games whenever he feels like it. And that's the key. There's I call it Bain time. It's like my little nickname for it that I coined, right? Bain time. It's like, it reminds me of like Howie time back in the day with the Raiders when they used to talk about NFL crunch scores back in the day. And this, what is Bain time? About 60% of the time, Bain it just kind of wills things to happen on the field. He just takes over. He just whatever he wants to do out there. I mean, when that switch goes on, but then the other 40% of the time, he absolutely positively disappears.
Yeah.
It's like a magic act. It's like what happened, just
Yeah.
it's almost like
Playoffs, he went crazy, but regular season at times he completely disappeared.
yeah.
But in the biggest games in the playoffs, he was unblockable.
Yeah, I mean, he got after it with Mendoza, Indiana. Getting back to that for a second, I mean, he was unstoppable. I mean, but there's a switch. And in all fairness, I want to say this about Bain too: is most of these guys, if not all of them, they're all like this. They're great 50, 60, 70% of the time. These guys are really good. And the other 30, I mean, Micah Parsons was that way. That's why I labeled Parsons coming out of Penn State as an explosive underachiever, because 50% of the time he looked like it was incredible. The other half the time, he just looked like he was playing flag football out there.
Yeah.
They all do this. They all kind of take plays off. Of course, sometimes they have responsibilities, backside responsibilities or something too that play into it. But Bain, yeah, he's a guy that's definitely worth it. I know this thing came out this last week, this very unfortunate incident that happened with the accident and stuff. It sounds
Yeah.
like from what a lot of seasoned NFL reporters are saying, that teams were vetting this for months. They knew about it, et cetera, et cetera. So it's not like people are trying to put this in the same category as Jalen Carter. It's not quite that much. This is a couple of years ago, not just something that happened a few months ago. And again, it's a terrible situation. Don't get me wrong, but I mean, I don't think that's going to really deter. I mean, there's no real criminal charges or anything coming that I've heard of, or anything. It sounds like it's kind of in the past, and so I don't think that's going to deter teams. I mean, this game is a passing league where it's about passing the ball and stopping the pass. And if you can get a guy in there like Ruben Bain, that's why I have him on my top 10 at number 10 on my board. That's what he's brought in to do. I think he can get after the passer, and I think he's going to do a good job of it in the NFL.
Yeah, it's just tough because you fall in love with the player and the attributes and the skill set, but the character concerns, you have to take that, into consideration. And you
You
look at
do.
Atlanta trading up for James Pierce last year and the situation they're in now with that, it's
It's a
tough.
mess, and there was
Yeah.
there was stuff pre-draft. I had in my reports about Pierce. I mean, they had
Yeah.
concerns about him at Tennessee, and that's a big part of this too. Behind the scenes, my NFL mentor really taught me a lot about this through the years. They do FBI level background checks. They do all this stuff with these players and social
Yeah.
media digs and everything else. They look at the criminal stuff and the character and interview all the coaches and everybody else. Like, a lot of stuff the public never hears about. But you're right. I mean, these character issues, and unfortunately, to one extent or another, there's probably things there you can dig up on a lot of players to one extent or another. I'm not saying really serious stuff, but there's stuff there. And that's why these teams will conduct interviews and pre-draft visits. I saw Matt Miller post something today from ESPN, said, hey, maybe some of you know this, maybe some of you don't, but the more pre-draft visits a player has, usually the more questions teams have about him. And, they want to bring him in and talk to him and stuff. And so there's always going to be stuff there, but it's such a huge investment when you bring these guys in that you just want to make sure that the best you can. I mean, nobody can ever know 100%. Obviously, we've seen that time and time again in the NFL, but you want to try to vet these things out as much as possible because, yeah, not only are you paying them millions of dollars, but they represent your team, they represent the city, everything. So, yeah, you definitely want character does play a big role in these evaluations.
Yeah, 100%. What are your thoughts on running back Jeremiah Love coming out of Notre Dame? I am really excited for him. I think he's going to be the first running back to go top 5 since Saquon Barkley. I don't really think he has any weaknesses, and he seems like a humble character guy that is going to get in the NFL and go crazy. And I love putting him in the same backfield as Cam Ward. I think that's only going to help Cam
Oh,
Ward's development with the Titans.
yeah, great valuation there. Well said, Alex. I mean, we're together on that one. I mean, I have a pre-draft Hall of Fame grade on Jeremiah Love. I mean, to me, he's a guy that, I mean, the only weakness I can really see in his game is much like Ashton Jeanty is the best chance. I mean, if you can get him before he gets started in the backfield,
Yeah,
that's your best shot, because outside
yeah,
of that, this guy, he's what I call a space architect. I mean, he can squeeze space. He has the vision and the instincts. He's calculated. He can just feel space. So if there's any space anywhere around him, he is going to take advantage of it. And he's going to squeeze that space and explode into the second level. He's a guy that has home run hitting speed, legit receiver on the backfield. And, like you said, he's a humble guy. I mean, that's something that stood out to me, too. He's a team player. He's selfless. He blocks as hard as he runs. I mean, if he he's in for blitz pickup or he's blocking, like let's say the quarterback runs it in. I saw on a short run down by the end zone. He's blocking. He's out there blocking. He's not just chipping. He's blocking. I mean, he's
Love to see
blocking like he
that.
means it. Yeah, and not only that, but he's durable. This is a guy that's never missed a game. He's never lost a fumble in his college
Yeah.
career.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he checks all the boxes. This guy's going to be really great. I've said that Washington needs to do everything in their power. If the Cardinals are really serious about trading down from 3, Washington's got to try to get him in there if they want to keep Jaden Daniels standing to take some pressure off. But I love the idea of Jeremiah Love going to Tennessee too. I think Jeremiah Love in Tennessee gives the Tennessee Titans the most dynamic backfield in the National Football League.
Yeah, 100%. I'm excited wherever he goes. I'm going to be watching him closely. And you mentioned the Cardinals, and GM Monty Ossenfort is known for being aggressive, trading one way or the other. I think there's a decent chance that the Cardinals might possibly trade back up into late first and go for Ty Simpson, and maybe the Jets early second, late first. Do you think that's a mistake?
I do.
Yeah.
I do. Yeah.
It's hard. These quarterbacks are the hardest eval, in my opinion. It's so hard to figure out the quarterbacks.
Yeah, the quarterbacks are tough. What I do is I look at these quarterbacks. Here's the issue: is that there's I touched on this earlier. There is such a difference between the college game and the NFL game.
Yeah.
I remember sitting there at the Jets. I had a chance to sit in when Bill Belichick was the defensive coordinator there before he went to New England. I had a chance to sit in with the rookie defensive players for minicamp. I had a chance to sit in his meeting. and I was sitting in the back of the room, and I played 1 year of high school football, so he lost me at hello, right? But I started watching guys from major programs, from Texas A&M, LSU, FSU, Florida, all these places around the country. They brought in these players from in the draft or undraftable free agents. And halfway through it, these guys are starting to kind of look around at each other like, like they kind of have this look in their face like they don't really get it.
Yeah.
And that's the issue. And that's even back then. The game is just, it seems like that bridge is just widened. And like I said, with this NIL stuff, it's just, college programs are simplifying more and more. The NFL is becoming more and more complex with the Clint Kubiaks of the world and the Ben Johnsons and these people. It's becoming more and more complex. And so that's a part of it that it is tough. Since 2021, I have a 70% running trending hit rate on quarterbacks. To me, what I look for is I call it my NFL colored glasses. When I watch college tape, I'm looking for the characteristics and the traits that best relate and translate to success in the NFL. I'm looking for guys that can make, a quick time to throw. I mean, like Carson Beck has the fastest time to throw in this draft at 2.40 seconds. I'm looking for guys that, you can see when they're standing in the pocket, when you're watching a film, their head is moving around, meaning they can go through their progressions. They can read coverages. That's a big one. I'm looking for guys that have poise in the pocket, who can climb the pocket, who can keep their eyes downfield. I'm looking for guys that show those type of characteristics. Ball placement's huge. Are we putting the ball where the receivers can just run right through it and pick up yards after the catch? Or are receivers like Zach Wilson at BYU, receivers are jumping and hopping and skipping and diving all over the place for the passes? We don't want that. We want ball placement precisely right on target. We want quick and accurate throwing decisions. Those are kinds of things I look for in a college film that are kind of tells that these guys can maybe do this and have a good chance of doing it at the NFL level, because it is such a transition. Now you got, like we talked about, all these guys are clapping for the snap, and they don't do that in the NFL. They do verbal cadences. I mean, John Gruden's done a great job. Have you seen some of that stuff with those classes he has? Where all of a sudden they're doing cadences, and we're going to do this on 2, and we're going to say it faster. And Caleb Williams struggled with that. early on.
Mhm.
And guys are all in shotgun now. And the thing that's really made it hard is everybody in college football seems to try to be the next Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah.
That's really made it tough because things that Patrick Mahomes can do because of his instincts, he doesn't need to rely on his footwork. I mean, for decades, we had quarterbacks systematically 3, 5, 7 step drops. That was
Mhm.
a universal law in football for quarterbacks: 3, 5, 7 step drop, throw, fire. I mean, that was the timing route. You put the ball right here. Unfortunately, that's almost extinct. And now what we have is we have quarterbacks just kind of running around back there, holding the ball too long, trying to find the open guy, the guy that uncovered downfield, and doing all this Patrick Mahomes stuff. And the Chiefs are really almost controlling the league because of it.
Yeah, and even as great as Mahomes is, you see at times he can even get himself in trouble, with that style of play. So,
Yeah, it's
yeah,
tough. It's
yeah.
tough because it's such a timing. The NFL is such a timing game. So you're right. I mean, because these defenses, these pass rushers are going to say hello in about 2 to 2.5 seconds.
Hmm.
And they're going to be right there. And then these corners, if they're playing press man and that, they're watching the backfield. They know how to jump the routes. I mean, yeah, it's tough. It's a timing league. In college football, it doesn't seem to be a timing game hardly at all anymore.
Yeah, yeah. That's a great take. I don't want to take too much of your time, but I want to get your perspective on the pass catcher. So, Kenyon Sadiq, in my mind, is really rising up the board. There's a chance he could end up going top 10. The Chiefs with Travis Kelce getting older. But Sadiq is such he can make guys miss after the catch. He's an excellent blocking tight end. How do you think not only him, but then the receivers, the top of the receiver board, Jordan Tyson, Mekhi Lemon, Carnell Tate. How do you think those guys stack up?
Yeah, great point, sir, Alex. Yeah, I have a top 10 grade on Kenyon Sadiq, and he really came on this year. He really matured. He really there was about 18 routes that I saw him run this year on film that I said, okay, it's legit. He is, to your point. I mean, a great blocking tight end. He's the best blocking tight end I've ever evaluated.
Wow.
But yeah, he's that good. Great hands, as you touched on. He had a 71.8% catch rate this year at Oregon. The route running became more sophisticated. To me, the biggest question mark on Sadiq, and he would be great with the Chiefs. I think that'd be because it's all about creating mismatches, right? So if they have
Yeah.
Kelce in there, and now you add Sadiq, and you're really playing against linebackers and safeties for the most part in coverage, those guys will destroy people if they're playing together.
Yeah.
With
Mahomes
Mahomes,
is
what's
Yeah.
that? That's
Yeah.
crazy. You know, it's crazy to think about, but yeah, he's a top 10 talent. The only concern about Sadiq I have, and again, I have a high grade on him, but there seemed to be kind of about 80% of the time, and this was really strange to me, and I don't like unanswered questions before the draft. I hate them, in fact. But this was
Hmm.
really strange. Like if I was working for a team, this is something I would have really dug hard into. Is that, and I would try to get an answer before the draft by talking to coaches or whoever I need to talk to, about this. But he seemed to be a decoy in almost 80% of his routes, is what I notated.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. He
I,
was supposed to go crazy at Oregon, and they didn't get him involved nearly enough.
It was weird. It almost seemed like if I was sitting with a team right now and the general manager asked me, okay, Daniel, just, final answer, game show, like, what do you think the real problem is? And I would say, well, I think, sir, what the problem was that, is that there was a disconnect between him and Dante Moore. There was a lack of trust between him and his quarterback. That's what it
Yeah.
felt like, because there was times where he was wide open and Dante Moore would even throw it to him. And he was looking in his direction, but he wouldn't even throw the ball to him. So I don't know if there was some kind of a disconnect between him and Moore, or what the problem was, but that's something that I would have to have answered before the draft. And I'm sure these teams are doing their homework and stuff to find out what that was about, because it just didn't make sense. Somebody like that, it's either that or he's a lazy route runner. It's one of the two.
Yeah.
Because at times because when he was on, when he wasn't a decoy, was a big difference between the routes where he looked like a decoy. But
Yeah.
I love him. I love the guy. I mean, it's only the ninth time I put a first round grade on a tight end since 2021. He sold me.
Wow. Very high praise. And then
Yeah.
lastly, let's talk corners real quick. And There's been some concern about Jermon McCoy, coming off that major injury. But I saw, his pro day, he looked great. And I
Yeah.
am willing to put all that stuff aside. I think he's, if I'm the Cowboys, I'm taking him at 12 as long as Mansour Delane's already off the board. I think Delane is going 11, maybe 9, right in that area. How do you see Mansour Delane and Jermon McCoy?
Yeah, I hear you there. I mean, Delane, to me, I have him as my third rated player on my entire board.
Wow.
Yeah, I
See,
mean,
Chris Sims was hating on him. Chris Sims doesn't like him. He's talking about his short arms.
yeah, no, I don't know. I don't know what to think about that, but because to me, Delane, I mean, I liked him. I put a first round grade on him in Virginia Tech.
Yeah,
The year prior, he had a showed a first round skill set, and then at LSU, he just became lockdown, shutdown, blanket, mirror coverage. He mirrors every step the receiver takes. He gets leverage very well on routes. He uses the sideline as a friend. He's able to squeeze guys. He's physical. He's a real banger in support. This guy brings a real presence to the field. He's a guy that gets really gets after it. What I called him is a predatory cover corner. He's a and the thing that really stuck out to me, Alex, was he just had such uncanny sense of timing. He seems to be able to get there almost, it doesn't matter if it's press man, off man zone. He seems to be able to get to the catch point right when the ball does.
wow.
A lot of the time. So to me, he's got that sense to him. He had 2 interceptions this last year, 11 PBUs, pass breakups. Nobody's perfect, but he's a guy that's by far and away the best corner in this draft to me. When I look at Jermod McCoy, I put a first round grade on his 2024 film. As of draft day, be 489 days since this guy's played in a game. Now he does
Yeah.
go into that pro day, and he did very, very well. I have him at my 24th player on my board right now. He ran a
Okay.
4.37, a pro day. But on his 2024 film, he was athletic, a squatty, muscular, physical build. He had 4 interceptions, 9 PBUs, high football IQ. He was a guy that knew. The thing that struck me about his 2024 film is he knew how to be physical without drawing flags, which is important. He had good technique. He showed on film. So I like him a lot as a corner. I like both those guys. A guy I have in the middle of that mix between the two is Colton Hood,
I
who's
like
a
him
guy.
as well. Yeah.
Yeah, you do like him. Yeah, that's cool because Colton Hood, I have him ranked as my 13th overall on my board for value. To me, the best cornerback at Colorado in 2024 wasn't named Travis Hunter.
Yeah.
His name was Colton Hood.
Wow.
And Deion Sanders trained Colton Hood at Colorado, and then he went to Tennessee. 2 straight years, he's looked good on film. I mean, Colton Hood's a guy that's another press man corner through and through. Lanky frame, a lurking disposition to him, shadows receivers, high football IQ, 8 PBUs, 1 interception, 1 forced fumble this last year. Any of those 3 guys, I think, would be a great corner addition for a team. And then I have a dark horse, kind of a wild card corner at my CB4 first round grade is Tacario Davis from
I was going
Washington.
to ask you about him. Yeah, I saw
Yeah,
because
yeah.
I haven't heard anybody else talking about him.
No, nobody is talking about him. He's missed some time over the last couple of years. He played for University of Arizona. And he transferred to the University of Washington this last year. But this guy's a ball hawk. He's a ball hawk with long arms. So maybe Chris Sims would like him. Yeah. But I mean, he's got the size, the aggressiveness. He's intimidating. He's comfortable. In different kind of coverage looks. He's physical. He has that confidence, that swag to him. He's handsy. He's got good straight line speed. He showed some burst this year at the University of Washington. He's got recovery speed, which is huge for a corner, and he's got excellent ball instincts. To me, this guy is being overlooked. I really like Tacario Davis.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you taking the time to come on this show, man. It means a lot. It's great to have you on for a second time. The draft right around the corner, so the perfect time to have you on and talk some football, man. It's a great time of year.
Absolutely. I appreciate it, Alex. Thank you so much for having me on your show. I hope everybody out there listening to this enjoys the draft. And yeah, it's about, let me see, about 2.5 weeks before I start in the 2027 class. So I got to take this time to just enjoy this.
Yeah, follow him on Twitter at First Round Mock. Go to firstroundmock.com. Follow along. It's going to be a great draft, and we really appreciate you taking the time, man. So let's enjoy the draft and see how these prospects pan out in the NFL. Hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Don't forget to like, subscribe, leave a comment, and have a great week, guys. Peace out.